Well, hello, and a very warm welcome back to the Andrew Eborn Show with me, Andrew Eborn, and my very special guest making a return appearance on the show. It's Amanda Eliasch. How are you, Amanda?
I'm in fantastic mood. I had a wonderful evening last night with Matthew Steeples of the
Ah,
Steeple Times, and he gave me a sort of dinner. It was great.
oh,
So I'm
wonderful
feeling
stuff.
fabulous and ready to go with you, Andrew, and
Oh, I love it. But you're
hit the
always ready to
road
go. It is
about the
glorious.
lovely Shakespeare.
Oh, absolutely. But what you're doing, you're blowing up 500 years of history. You claim that Shakespeare didn't write Shakespeare and Queen Elizabeth wasn't a virgin. Tell me, what was the catalyst for this particular expose?
Well, number one, I live in Cheyne Walk. Cheyne Walk is on the site of Chelsea Manor Street. Chelsea Manor was, I mean, all along the Thames were fantastic palaces originally. Very few exist. They were all rebuilt. And on this spot is the garden of Elizabeth I and Henry VIII and Catherine Parr. They all lived here, and Anne of Cleves, I think, as well. And I suppose it spiked my interest into the whole history behind it. But as a little girl, age 7, okay, what, age 7, sorry, he was pointing things at me. At age 7, I was given,
It's
I
the
was
Hector behind
given,
the scenes, I know.
I was mad on Shakespeare. And I would say to my grandfather all the time, who was a filmmaker, um, Shakespeare didn't write the plays. I don't think he did. He was an ordinary man from Stratford, and why on earth would he be interested in all these dukes and earls and the history plays? And he would say, "No, no, no, you're completely wrong." But actually, when I looked into it, there were so many people from Hillary Clinton to Henry James that are absolutely certain that William Shakespeare was just a brand name, like Starbucks.
Yeah.
Well, it is. It is. You go along to the Globe now, and you will find all sorts of merch, selling William Shakespeare, not stuff that we want, t-shirts with brand, sort of a saying on the front and a jigsaw puzzle. Nothing that we really want.
No, absolutely. Well, look, you say that Edward de Vere he wrote Hamlet about his own life. That's what you're claiming. Walk me through the smoking gun, if you like. Does the 17th
Well,
Earl Diary become a Prince of Denmark soliloquy? How did that happen?
I really truly believe that actually the whole of the history, not just Hamlet, but whoever wrote Hamlet is Shakespeare, okay? Because that's one of his greatest plays. The most unmucked around play is Romeo and Juliet. But you can tell from the sonnets as well that if you look at it a different way, some people like to say that Edward de Vere was homosexual, but actually, if you look at it a different way, it's a letter to a son saying, please don't muck our dynasty up. Because I believe, and it's just my idea, that actually Edward de Vere was the son of Thomas Seymour and Elizabeth I when she was very young, because there's evidence to support this that Cat Ashley was sent to the Tower of London for cross-examination as to whether or not Elizabeth I had been, who was then a princess, had been attacked by Thomas Seymour. But in fact, it was well documented that they had. He used to visit her every morning, and that's not Georgette Heyer or Anya Seton. That is fact. And he used to visit her every morning. And there's one huge scandal in Chelsea Manor where all her stays and corsets were ripped off in the garden. Now, I don't think this would be made up in Tudor England unless it had actually happened. So it's quite reasonable that she could have had a child. Okay, he used to visit her every morning, and she liked him a lot. And it was a huge scandal because he's so ambitious, Thomas Seymour, which, by the way, he lost his head because of this ambition. He shot the puppy of Edward, the brother of Elizabeth I. Now, if you're not lost in this story, I'm so sorry. Or if you are, I'm so sorry
No, no,
because it
no.
is very
I love it
convoluted.
because
But
it's given
anyway,
such.
this
It's
gives, I think it gives the
yes.
scandal of Edward de Vere is so shocking, and it matches Hamlet, and it also matches other plays as well. And you suddenly understand the human fragility And actually, Elizabeth comes alive too, and you understand why she painted her face with white, and not just because she had smallpox, but
Yes.
because she also wanted to rid herself of the scandals that had been her past, which was Anne Boleyn. Her mother was killed, actually
Yeah.
rather unnecessarily, but she was killed. And I think she just wanted to clean up her act, and she came out one day with the idea of recreating her image.
Right. No, interesting. Well, we're going to come on to Elizabeth and your claim
Yes,
about the Virgin Queen exposed. I want to go back to De Vere first, though, however. So the
yes.
first 17 sonnets you've got, are you saying they're De Vere's love letters in code? And who is the fair youth? You talk about his protege or his son or even his
Yes.
lover.
Okay, so um the sonnets represent the time. I can't, darling, I can't. He's giving me notes. I can't work like that. Um,
Is that
yes, but he
Hector?
wants me to get it right, which I mean I might not.
Is
Basically,
Hector
the
hectoring
sonnets
you?
represent, yes, exactly. We're so into this subject and we're so passionate about it. Um, the sonnets represent a letter to the Earl of Southampton, who is meant to be who is meant to be the son, or in my opinion, the son of Edward de Vere. And Edward de Vere, he was the son of Elizabeth I, which fills the time gap, would mean that it was the grandson of Elizabeth. And definitely, he was the last of the royal wards, as was Edward de Vere, the first of the royal wards. The royal wards meaning that they went to live in Burghley with Lord Burghley and they had extra tuition. And there were many. So, I think that there's a possibility that the Earl of Southampton received this. He was a very vain individual. He was also very charismatic. Everybody, I believe, knew that he was a young prince. And they all knew by the age uh, of of Edward de Vere being 21, he knew by then that he was possibly a prince. He would sign his signature with a crown. And he was Lord Chamberlain of England. He had access to everything. He was the greatest earl. They had enormous quantities of beautiful horses. They were very, very rich. Only all their money was stolen by Lord Burghley.
Right.
Which is probably a good thing, by the way, because he was no good with money. He was a very flawed individual, and it was probably a good thing. Otherwise, there would be no money today. The Cecils wouldn't be rich as they are today.
Right, right. Well, now you've got a number of
Okay, so
heavyweights
so I
in.
think it mirrored history. Okay, the
Yes.
sonnets mirror history, and so does Hamlet.
Yeah, and I
And
think that
it's a play
that's the
within a
biggest
play.
thrust, isn't it? That's the biggest
Sorry?
thrust, Amanda, of what you're saying is that it mirrors his life. He's far more likely to have written it. And tell us what we don't know about Shakespeare then, because and why you suggest he wouldn't be the writer.
Well, Shakespeare was the son of a glove maker. It's not to say that they were a poor glove maker. It's to say he's the son of a glove maker in Stratford. His father was, I think, the mayor of Stratford, but there's no education that was going to support a person to write the way that he had. And he didn't go to Cambridge, he didn't go to Oxford, which, by the way, was available to Marlowe. So if you had a great intellect, you were from a lowly background, you could in fact go to Oxford and Cambridge. It was quite egalitarian, and Marlowe did, and Shakespeare did not. And he was very interested in litigation. He was always having small, petty litigations with people in the village. He's very keen on suing. He is supposed to have, been owning theatres in London. He was supposed to have done that or had shares in them. But he's meant to also, which is quite interesting, be a relative of Edward de Vere through the grandmother. So there is a weird connection. And there's a weird connection in All's Well That Ends Well, if anybody's interested, where a touchstone meets this clown well, touchstone is the clown, goes to and meets this yokel in the Forest of Arden. So there's sort of connection. And plus, Shakespeare became very, very rich during this time, and no writers are ever rich, not really.
So,
You know,
so
they're
why
often
why
poor.
do you think they picked Shakespeare then to get the
I
accolade?
think it, well, I think it was a great joke. It was a play on names, Will and Shake the Spear. You know, they thought it was a great spoof. And by the way, it is a great name. It's lasted. And I don't believe that the earls, who, by the way, could have written under his name, not just Edward de Vere, but anything at one stage was put under the name of William Shakespeare. So
Yeah.
it was very often used. You know, it was a fact that it was often used. But Edward de Vere was a great writer in his lifetime. He'd gone to Cambridge and Oxford. He was in the law courts by all before the age of about 17 years old. He could speak 10 languages. You know, he's a very wordy and very literate man. He also could write plays. And you know, he was an extraordinary character, very flawed.
Yes, I mean, well, let's talk about some of those flaws. I mean, one of the things that you suggest, first of all, is that he couldn't claim to have written the plays himself because that would have been not right in society. Is that a fair comment?
Yes, at the time, nobody of an aristocratic status could have possibly written. It was
Okay, so
very
he was a
dangerous.
playwright, which was viewed as a flaw or beneath
Yeah,
him.
yes. And on top of that, Lord Bur you know, he married Lord Burleigh's daughter, Anne
Yes,
Cecil, and he was horrible to her. And I think he had a sort of crush and on his mother. You know, it's sort of sick, but Titus Andronicus is all about that.
you think he
And
had the
I think
Oedipus complex?
Yes, I think he had an Oedipus complex. They all did. They all called them Elizabeth the First Mother in the royal courts of wards. You know, in the royal wards at Burghley House, they called her mother. I think they had a weird relationship with her. Plus, she would never ever, it was all about the succession. She would never ever give up her throne. She didn't want to die. And if you remember, she stood for days on end in order not to die. And she wouldn't tell anybody who she wanted to follow her. And she certainly was worried about Southampton. But you notice she did not kill Southampton, Earl of Southampton, in the Tower of London when they went to visit her. But she did kill the Earl of Essex. And that tells you everything because
What
she
what
should have
what
killed
what does
him for
it tell us?
treason.
Does that
Well, it
complete
tells
complete?
us that basically they all went to her and said, "Who's going to be following you? You know,
Right,
you're getting up there, and we need to make a decision on who's going to be the prince that follows you." And she didn't want to do that.
right.
And you know, it's easy at the time. I mean, going back in time, it was easy to hide. You know, they were redheads with white faces. You know, everybody looked like that in Tudor England. They don't look like that today, but they looked
Yes,
like that then. They had very fair coloring. We were, you know, we were very, very light. And it was easy to hide her. She only had to get a cousin. She had them as ladies' maids. You know, everybody around her was the same coloring. You just put them in the same gear.
right.
Anyway,
No.
so I think everybody got very confused with the whole story.
Yes. Well, no, interesting. I mean, and you've got it's not just you. I mean, you've obviously got a number of heavyweights in the industry. You've got Sir Derek Jacobi, Alexander Moore, Hank Whitmore in your film as well. When these heavyweights agree with you, why do you think universities still teach the Stratford myth?
Well, it's about money, isn't it? The Stratford gets a lot of money each year from the government and it supports tourism. And tourism is a lot of our economy. You know, it's a huge part of our economy. And how are they going to say, actually, you shouldn't be going to Stratford, but you should be going to Lavenham, which actually is a much more beautiful
Oh, it's stunning.
place in
My
England.
grandfather was based in Lavenham, a fantastic place.
Yes, it's absolutely beautiful. It's authentic and it's completely Tudor, Elizabethan. They're not, it doesn't really fit the egalitarian nature of a British man.
Hmm?
And the egalitarian nature of a British man wants the person who wrote the plays to be working class and worked up the greasy pole in order to being the greatest writer that England ever had.
Um,
Okay.
Elizabeth the Virgin. Let's talk about that. You say it was a PR stunt, if you like. Was she covering up a pregnancy or a royal bloodline? And how does De Vere fit into that bedroom?
Well, I think that he's the son. but that's my opinion. I don't think it's the opinion of Derek Jacobi, or any of the De Vere Society. It's people are split, but I believe that Edward de Vere is the son of Thomas Seymour and Elizabeth, and she disappeared for 7 months. And then said that she could come back to court and prove that she was no longer pregnant. Well, you and I both know that with your first child, you get very skinny afterwards and nobody would be able to tell. I mean, I don't believe they could tell. And Elizabeth was slim and she had a penchant for sweet things, but she would have been quite slim at that time, as was her father Henry and Anne Boleyn. I don't believe that her DNA would have been fatso. So I think she would have got very slim very quickly. And anyway, it was in her interest to do so because she was so terrified that if she was caught, she would be killed. Her mother was killed, and they had all accused her of being a bastard. So it was very precarious. I think it was a scandal that was hidden, as today's scandals are hidden. People like to cover up others' misdemeanors. And she was terrified. And there was a huge problem between Catholicism and Protestants at that time. And it was terrifying.
Right.
And there were only three legitimate heirs.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting. I
And
mean, Thomas Seymour, as you say, Elizabeth's step uncle, was beheaded for
yes,
treason. That's the family his secret that you're hinting at, that Queen and the Earl were related.
yes. I believe that she had a crush on him. Kat Ashley says this. If anybody wants to go down this greasy pole and find all the stuff, the rabbit warren, they will find that Kat Ashley indeed purported that she was having an affair with Thomas Seymour, that he had a great crush on her, and that she had one on him too. She believed they should be together. Read Hank Whittemore.
Yes. Oh, no, no. It's fascinating. And as you
And
say, yeah.
yes, it's very, very well documented. It's just that people love to cover up, and also they haven't got time today to go down these.
No,
Um,
but we will go down the rabbit hole with you. This is why I think it's great to have you on the show talking about it. And you talk about merch. I love the De Vere or not De Vere cap.
yeah, I know, I did that.
Available in all good shops.
Yes, exactly. I love it.
It's good and good. Now you've used wonderful technology. I'm determined to put the AI into Britain. As you know, I speak around the world as a futurist to bring
Yeah.
the portrait to light. Talk to me about how you discovered AI and the power that it could have, so you get away from these dusty old two-headed documentaries.
Okay, so it was a two-headed documentary, and in the beginning it was 4 hours, but we cut it down to 2 hours. Then, I mean, it's a very dense subject, and you have to be very, very clear on it, and it's very difficult. So basically, and it can be very boring. So basically, with my partner Hector, he's not my boyfriend, he's married to someone else, but we get on very well. We said, what on earth do we do to bring everything alive? And I saw Donald Trump coming alive doing very wacky stuff, as we know, with our friend Alison Jackson. And I said one day to Hector, can't we use AI? Well, how on earth's that done? Can't we bring those pictures to life instead of having, documents on the film, in the film? Why don't we bring in pictures? And he did it beautifully.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
and I feel it's compelling. He mixed a bit of James de Vere with a bit of his father and a bit of Edward, and Thomas Seymour, I'm sure, went into the mix, and out comes this gorgeous looking man. And as we live in a day that likes good looking people, I said, please make him good looking. I'm not sure that Edward de Vere was as good looking as the creation that Hector created, Hector Abaunzadelve. He's an amazing cinema photographer and director.
No,
So I
fantastic.
work with him
So,
and
so
have done for
Hector was
20
in
years.
LA for most of the time. You were in
Yes.
London. How do you direct a film across so many time zones with AI as your third director?
Because we are miracle workers. No, it's very easy. I speak to him at midnight and he's sort of halfway through his day, and we work together. Then he comes over here and I go over there, and it sort of works. And it works brilliantly that we're not living on top of each other. It means that there cuts down rows, you have time to work something out. Anyway, we had more rows with our last film because we didn't know each other, but now we're companions. in this fantastic story. And also he, as you've just seen, he was sending me notes, okay, because he's so passionate about the story. In the beginning, he knew nothing. He knew nothing, and he learned everything. And
Yeah.
so he's so determined that I must get it right.
No, fantastic. Well, look, you
And if
feel.
he could, he would come on here now and say, I love this story, and
Well, he
you've got
should do. Where is he? He's.
he's here.
Oh, well, pop your head in. Hello, Hector.
He's filming. It doesn't matter. You can come
Oh,
here and say
you can pop your head in. We'll get you on later. Come
I'm
say
yes.
just
hello.
filming Amanda here from behind. Sorry about
There we
that.
go. The man behind you.
Hello.
My
How are you doing?
fault.
Oh,
Come
look,
and
you've
sit
got
here and
No,
Mama.
talk.
I'm here. I'm good. I'm
Sit
good.
for 2 seconds
How are
and
you
tell
doing,
me how
Andrew?
you
All right.
found it.
What
Just
what
who
is your
did all the AI?
T-shirt say, Hector?
This is all about this is all marketing from Amanda. Actually, it's amazing. So Amanda, I was telling her yesterday when I think the other day when I landed from LA, I said, you know, Amanda, you changed my life. Because during the pandemic, we were doing all these kinds of films. I was directing TV commercials for Canada in LA. We built like a garage in LA, a studio in my garage, and we were doing beauty shots of wherever we could, and it was, fun. But then I've been doing a feature film in Japan the past year and a half, and they keep talking about, oh yeah, we're gonna do this on AI and this on AI. I was thinking, how are you gonna do it? AI is not that great. And they said, oh, what are you saying, Hector-san? So then, coincidentally, the last time when we filmed the last segments with Amanda, because we keep reshooting things to make the film better, suddenly Amanda showed me these things of Trump, and I was like, yeah, it's done in AI, but frankly, I was like, how do they do that? I have no clue. And then when I went back to LA, I talked to some of my friends in Japan and in New York, and they explained to me the basics. They said, you're a cinematographer, you're a director. It's just like directing films. You just need to create the characters, blend them, and then voila, you do first a picture and then move everything. You move the camera. And I started sending renderings to Amanda, the first ones, they were hideous, to be honest. And then, we just keep diving and diving and diving and diving. And I talked to people in the studio in New York and few guys that have done like amazing music videos, totally with AI. And I said to Amanda, look, if we get into do B-rolls and all the building the history of rebuilding really London on what was during the time of Queen Elizabeth and Shakespeare and the year, we have to make it accurate. It has to be flawless. It has to be all incredibly to the note. So I got, all the renderings of the wardrobe of Queen Elizabeth and Amanda would tell me, no, that's wrong. Maybe you don't do the cufflinks. Maybe you don't do this. Maybe. So we work in such detail once I learned how to, really use AI. And I mean, it's incredible. So I said to Amanda, either we do it beautiful, we don't compromise, or we don't do it at all. Because if it's gonna look suddenly that he becomes a chicken or have 7 fingers, so things like we don't want to do that. So at the end, we even did some segments that we needed to reshoot, and Amanda, you sent me the voiceovers, and then I have her walking here in Cheney in the muse around saying some things that we missed, and when you see them, it's like you can't believe is not filmed, which is,
Right. Oh no, it's
I'm not gonna say I became a
absolutely,
fan,
absolutely.
but it's an amazing tool.
It is an amazing tool. Let's get
Yes.
Amanda back as well.
Okay, come on, Amanda.
Can you
Sorry for
both
that.
be on
Thank
the
you,
screen at
Andrew.
the same? Can you both be on
No,
the
I
screen
thought
at
it
the
would
same
make
time?
it more
Oh, there we go.
interesting.
I love the tag team. This is great. We'll get you both on shot in a bit. Now you filmed at some extraordinary places. The Tower of London, Headingham Castle, even a Tesco car park. What's the strangest place that led you to the truth?
Well, really, the Tesco's, I mean, it's crazy. So you go into the middle of London, which is really messy and horrible now. And you have to imagine that actually in Elizabethan days, they were palaces. So
Yes.
since then, we've turned a beautiful palace called Fisher's Palace. What's it called? Fisher's Folly. It's
Yes.
called Fisher's Folly in the middle into Tesco's. I mean, can you imagine that? Anything more ugly? So I go in there and there's a whole lot of men there and they're all from other countries in the world. And I say to them, can I go to the basement of your shop? And they looked very strangely at me. And they said, what do you want to do in the basement of our shop? I said, you've got a wall that I need to look at. He said, what's about this wall? He said, what's on this? I said, well, it's our Mecca. So I go downstairs and there's this sort of 30-foot wall. And that's the only thing that's left of Fisher's Folly. But hold on. Oh, God. hold on. I don't know how to go back onto Zoom.
That's all right. You're here. You're still here. You're still
Oh,
going. I can
can
still
you
see
see
you.
me?
I can see you.
Okay,
You're
yeah.
absolutely fine. Don't worry.
Okay, because I can't see you.
I'll
And
let you
and
know when you
basically,
can't.
we
So
go into Bishop's Folly. There's a
yes.
30-foot wall, and that's all that's left of this beautiful palace, which had beautiful gardens, tennis courts, bowling greens, everything.
Yeah.
So
No. It is.
it's
It's glorious on that subway. Now your grandfather was Hollywood royalty. Did he ever whisper to you, "Darling, Shakespeare's a fraud"?
no, he was horrified. He was a big Shakespearean fan. And that's how I got to love it, actually, because that's when I was very young. He used to read to me bits of the plays and make me watch programs, all sorts of things. And I sort of began to love it then. And then later on, I went to drama school. You know, I went to RADA and ALRA and BARDA, which is a British American Drama Academy, and I learnt with the finest brains. So I've liked it for a very long time, but I always felt there was something wrong with Shakespeare. And so it was only until COVID that I actually had the time to really study it. And then I came across the De Vere Society, and then there are amazing scholars from America and from England, including Sir Derek Jacobi, which is who heralds it all. And I came across the family of De Vere too, who are amazing writers. And, you know, really, I became enthusiastic about it and I wanted to find the truth. And so Hector and I went on this amazing journey, and it took us 3 years to do.
No, amazing. Now, the gun, the cake, and the butterfly, which we spoke about previously on this show, raw, confessional, award-winning. This is History on Fire. Which was harder, exposing yourself or exposing Shakespeare?
Neither were hard, they were pure joy. I'm saying that in all honesty. If I wasn't a man, I'd be a filmmaker full time. It's just that I came to it later. You know, I was 45 when I did The Gun and The Cake and the Butterfly. It took me about 7 years to do, and I wrote it for my father. It was based on a poem, and actually Hector brought it to life because it wasn't quite right the first cut edits that I did, and that's where I met Hector. And the second one, of course, has been pure delight because it's a bit like our Da Vinci Code. It is our Da Vinci Code. It's England's Da Vinci Code.
Yeah,
And
England's Da
it's
Vinci
much more
Code.
exciting.
I
And
love it.
I am not Hank, but I am Amanda.
Well, that's certainly true. So, to every English teacher watching, and there would be thousands around the world saying this is not true at all, persuade them why they should tear up their textbooks or defend the Stratford man. Give them the 30 seconds to prove that Shakespeare, it was not Shakespeare that wrote Hamlet.
Well, I don't think it really matters. I think that they should expose it because it is a lie and we need to learn truth. And actually, the lie is as interesting as the truth. And why not expose both? And also, I think children today, because they're down the rabbit hole on TikTok, whether you like it or not, it would make it more exciting. It's a very exciting Tudor drama, just as the Windsor family are today. And in exposing it, they would bring people back to love Shakespeare because the real story helps watch it and love it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why every English literature teacher should teach the story of Edward de Vere, alongside maybe if they can't stomach the fact that it was an aristocrat that had full control over the writing, then do it in conjunction with William Shakespeare, who, by the way, covered for the Earls and is quite amazing. So I think we have to thank both people.
Okay. And if Edward de Vere were to walk in right now to join us on the Andrew Eborn show, what's the one question you'd ask him? In he comes.
Any cuts.
What's the one question you'd like to ask him, and what do you think he'd say?
Oh, I think I'd be in love with him. So I would definitely be in love with him. I'd definitely seduce him immediately, just to have the experience of being with one of the most wonderful characters in history. And we should definitely be completely knowledgeable on this man who has been totally maligned in history. He wanted to be buried where his bones were, and by God, he did his best to do it. But he always left codes. And remember, there are many codes that lead us to him, and also to Marlowe, and also to other people, Bacon as well, because they all wrote a bit together. You know, they stole. Plagiarism wasn't condemned at the time. They did it all the time. And
Yeah.
so if somebody wrote a line better than they did, they pinch it.
Right.
And remember, they were great translators. You
Yes.
know, whoever did this, Cardona's Comfort. I mean, I've got in my film the most wonderful bit, which is my favorite bit in the film, of Alexander War reading Cardona's Comfort in the beginning of it. And it's very touching.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's an extraordinary experience. Why not enrich it by putting aside Shakespeare and including Edward de Vere? I don't understand the way people think.
Yeah. Well, we're going to hopefully change all that. So, final truth bomb then for today's session, Amanda.
Oh my God.
In 50 years' time, will school kids be taught Shakespeare or de Vere? And will the truth will out be the reason?
I think that TikTok and all these amazing sites will bring the truth, because people can only listen for 30 seconds anyway now. I mean, heaven knows what they'll be doing in the future, but they can only listen to about 10 to 30 seconds on these sites, platforms. And so I think, yes, I think their knowledge will be very, very great. But, you know, we have to make it exciting for them. And the new way to do it is to make the Tudor world very, very scandalous. Don't make the Queen pure. She was not. And it's very clear that she was not. And don't exclude Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford, because he enriches the whole experience of Shakespeare.
Fantastic.
Is that enough?
Amanda, absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for joining us again. We'll get you back on and expose more of it. But for now, Amanda Eliasch, thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye.
Yes, this is Amanda Eliasch, and please subscribe to the Andrew Eborn show and watch him on Sky too.